The war began at Proxima Station 3 months after the alien fleet left Earth. Captain Danny Torres commanded the small defensive force guarding the mining colony when the enemy arrived. 500 alien ships came out of hyperspace like metal, thunder, their weapons already charging for the attack. Danny had 12 human ships and a half-built space station to defend 20,000 miners and their families. Admiral Kevin Park watched the battle from Earth through quantum communication links. His command center deep inside Luna Station showed him every human position across 17 star systems. The aliens were attacking everywhere at once, hitting mining colonies, research stations, and farming worlds with overwhelming force. It was the largest military operation in galactic history, and humanity was facing it alone. Danny Torres made the first decision that would define the entire war. Instead of trying to match the alien formations and fight them in space, he ordered his ships to hide in the asteroid field near Proxima Station. When the aliens came looking for them, human ships appeared from behind rocks and debris, firing at close range before disappearing again. The aliens had never faced an enemy that refused to fight in the open. The Battle of Proxima Station lasted 18 hours. Danny lost 8 of his 12 ships, but the alien fleet lost 30 vessels to human surprise attacks. More importantly, the aliens learned that their perfect formations and coordinated attacks meant nothing when the enemy refused to stand still and fight properly. Human ships moved like hunters stalking prey, patient and deadly and impossible to predict. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, engineer Amy Foster was converting car factories to build missile launchers. The colony had been building vehicles and machinery for the mining worlds, but now every factory was switching to military production. Amy worked 20-hour days redesigning assembly lines and training workers who had never seen a weapon before. Within weeks, farmers and mechanics were building guided missiles that could destroy alien battleships. Admiral Park studied the reports from every battle and began to see patterns in alien tactics. The enemy ships were incredibly advanced, but they fought like machines following a program. They had specific responses to specific threats, but when humans did something unexpected, the aliens took time to adapt. Human commanders learned to use this weakness, changing tactics constantly and never giving the enemy time to adjust. The siege of Kepler Station became the first major test of human defensive strategy. Commander Ryan Bell had 2 weeks to prepare his defenses before the alien fleet arrived. Instead of building traditional fortifications, Ryan created a maze of debris fields, fake installations, and hidden weapons platforms. When the aliens attacked, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Ryan's defenders used every trick they could think of. They hid ships inside hollowed-out asteroids and used mining equipment as weapons. They sent false signals to confuse alien sensors and used captured alien technology against its original creators. The aliens had planned for a 3-day assault but found themselves trapped in a month-long battle that cost them hundreds of ships. Dr. Julie Morgan worked in a secret laboratory on Earth, studying pieces of alien technology recovered from battle sites. What she discovered changed everything humans thought they knew about themselves. Human brains could interface with alien computers in ways that should have been impossible. The neural patterns that made humans adaptable and creative also allowed them to understand and modify alien systems faster than the aliens themselves. Julie's research led to the development of hybrid weapons that combined human engineering with alien technology. Human ships began carrying weapons that were more advanced than anything in the alien fleet. More importantly, human crews could learn to operate captured alien vessels within days, while aliens needed months to understand even simple human technology. The Council forces had expected a quick war against a primitive enemy. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with every battle. Human tactics evolved rapidly, incorporating lessons learned from each defeat and victory. Alien tactics remained the same, locked into patterns that had worked for thousands of years but were useless against human unpredictability. Commander Ryan Bell's success at Kepler Station inspired similar defensive strategies across human space. Colony governors began building complex defense networks that turned entire star systems into death traps for unwary attackers. The aliens found that every human world was defended differently, requiring new approaches and costing valuable time and ships. Captain Danny Torres, promoted after his victory at Proxima Station, led the first human counterattack 6 months into the war. His fleet consisted of captured alien ships operated by human crews, who had learned to use the advanced technology in ways the original designers never intended. The attack on the alien supply base at Rigel 7 succeeded because the defenders could not understand how their own weapons were being used against them. The alien supply lines began to break down as human raiders attacked convoys and support bases. The Council had planned for a short war and had not prepared for extended operations far from their home worlds. Human ships designed for long-range exploration and built to operate independently had no such limitations. They could strike anywhere and disappear before enemy reinforcements arrived. Admiral Krozeth of the Draconi Republic demanded more ships and troops from the Council as his forces struggled to contain human expansion. The war that was supposed to last weeks had dragged on for 8 months with no end in sight. Worse, some Council species were beginning to question whether the war was necessary. The costs were mounting while the benefits remained unclear. On New Montana, Dr. Sam Rodriguez had finished translating the ancient warnings. The ruins told the story of the last species to challenge galactic authority 3,000 years ago. That species had also been young and aggressive, expanding rapidly across the stars. The Council of that time had united against them and won, but the victory had cost so much that galactic civilization had taken centuries to recover. Sam's translation revealed that the galaxy went through cycles of growth and conflict. Young species would challenge old orders, forcing change through war or submission. The warning suggested that these cycles were necessary for galactic evolution, preventing stagnation and encouraging progress. The species that built the ruins understood that their defeat was part of a larger pattern. The Battle of the Meridian Nebula marked the turning point of the war. Admiral Nick Rogers commanded a mixed fleet of human and captured alien vessels, using the nebula's radiation to hide his approach from enemy sensors. The alien fleet guarding the strategic system never saw the attack coming. Human ships emerged from the glowing clouds like ghosts, striking with precision and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Nick's victory at Meridian Nebula opened the way to the alien fortress world of Bastion Prime. The heavily defended planet controlled shipping routes for 3 sectors and served as the main supply base for Council forces in human space. Its capture would effectively end the alien ability to sustain their offensive operations. The assault on Bastion Prime required every available human ship and thousands of volunteer crews. Colonel Frank Martinez led the ground forces that would have to capture the planet's defense centers while the fleet dealt with orbital fortifications. It was the most ambitious operation humans had ever attempted, and failure would mean the destruction of humanity's main military force. As human ships gathered for the attack on Bastion Prime, reports arrived from across the galaxy that changed everything. Several Council species had withdrawn their fleets from the war zone and were returning to their home worlds. The unity that had held the Galactic Alliance together for thousands of years was beginning to crack under the pressure of an impossible war against an enemy that refused to be defeated. 6 months after the Council sent their message, alien ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. Commander Alex Johnson stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched them through the main screen. 12 different types of ships hung in space like a metal forest, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. Alex had been chosen to lead the first meeting between humans and aliens, and he felt the weight of his entire species resting on his shoulders. The alien fleet had arrived exactly when their message said they would. The message itself had shocked every human leader on Earth and the colonies. After 100 years of expanding into space and finding empty worlds, humanity had learned they were not alone. The galaxy was full of life, and that life was not happy with human expansion. President Rachel Adams had called emergency meetings on Earth as soon as the alien message arrived. The United Earth government brought together representatives from every human colony to decide how to respond. The aliens wanted humanity to stop expanding, to limit their population, and to accept Council oversight of human technology. In return, humanity would be allowed to keep the worlds they already had, and would receive protection from other galactic threats. Dr. Monica Cruz spoke for the science colonies when she explained why the alien demands were impossible to accept. Earth's population was already at the limit of what the planet could support. The colony worlds were still building their basic systems and could not take many more people. If humanity stopped expanding, they would slowly die as resources ran out and populations had nowhere to grow. The aliens were asking humans to choose a slow death over a quick one. Commander Alex Johnson had studied the alien fleet for 3 days before making contact. His tactical officers counted at least 200 ships, each one armed with weapons that could destroy Earth's largest cities. The aliens had technology that was centuries ahead of humanity. But Alex noticed something interesting. Their ships moved in perfect formations and responded to commands with machine-like precision. They seemed to follow patterns that never changed. The first meeting took place on a small station that the aliens built in space between their fleet and Earth. Alex brought a team of diplomats and scientists, while the aliens sent representatives from each of their species. Chancellor Vexathera spoke for the council, her blue-scaled face showing no emotion as she explained humanity's choices. The alien terms were simple and non-negotiable. Human expansion would stop immediately. No new colonies could be built without council permission. Human population would be limited to current levels. All human technology would be reviewed by council experts before it could be used. Human military forces would be reduced to police levels. In exchange, humanity would receive advanced medical, technology and protection from hostile aliens. Alex listened to the terms and understood that they meant the end of human freedom. The aliens were offering humanity the chance to become pets in a galactic zoo, fed and protected, but never allowed to grow or change or reach for the stars that had called to humans for thousands of years. He looked at the alien faces around the table and saw that they truly believed they were being generous. Back on Earth, President Adams shared the alien terms with the world. The response was immediate and angry. Protests filled the streets of every major city. Colony governors sent messages saying they would rather fight than surrender. The frontier worlds, where humans had struggled against hostile environments and dangerous wildlife, were especially defiant. Governor Pete Sullivan of New Texas spoke for the Outer Colony Defense Coalition when he said that frontier humans would never accept alien rule. His people had fought storms that could strip flesh from bone and predators that hunted in packs of 50. They had built cities on worlds where water had to be made from ice and where the air itself was poison. They would not surrender their freedom to aliens who had never faced such challenges. Captain Lisa Wang commanded the stealth ship Shadow Dancer and had been watching the alien fleet from a distance. Her sensors recorded everything about alien technology and tactics. What she found surprised her. The aliens had incredible technology, but they used it in simple ways. Their weapons were powerful, but inflexible. Their ships were fast, but followed predictable patterns. Most importantly, their crews seemed to lack the ability to adapt when something unexpected happened. Lisa's reports went to Admiral Lisa Carter at Luna Station. The Admiral studied the information and began to understand that humanity might have advantages the aliens did not expect. Human military doctrine was based on adapting to new situations and using whatever resources were available. Human soldiers were trained to think for themselves and make decisions without waiting for orders. These abilities had developed because humans had always faced unpredictable enemies and changing battlefields. The diplomatic talks continued for 2 weeks, but both sides knew they were just following the proper forms. The aliens could not understand why humans would choose war over peace. They had given humanity a generous offer that would ensure human survival. Most species were grateful for such protection. The humans, however, seemed to value their freedom more than their lives. Commander Johnson tried to explain human history to the alien diplomats. He told them about wars fought for independence, about explorers who died seeking new lands, about scientists who risked everything to discover new truths. Humans had always chosen dangerous freedom over safe slavery. It was not just their nature. It was their defining characteristic as a species. Chancellor Vexathara listened to these stories and felt a growing concern. The Council had faced aggressive species before. but never one that seemed to prefer death to submission. Such species were unpredictable and dangerous, capable of actions that rational beings would never consider. Perhaps the military option would be necessary after all. On the frontier world of New Montana, Dr. Sam Rodriguez had finally translated enough of the ancient warnings to understand their full meaning. The ruins spoke of a cycle that had repeated many times. A young species would expand rapidly, challenging the established order. The old civilizations would unite against them, forcing a choice between submission and war. Most species chose submission and slowly faded into irrelevance. A few chose war and were destroyed. But occasionally, very rarely, a species would choose war and win. Sam sent his findings to Earth, but the message would take weeks to arrive. Meanwhile, the diplomatic talks were reaching their end. Commander Johnson had delivered humanity's final answer to the Council. Humans would not accept limitations on their expansion or their freedom. They offered friendship and trade with all alien species, but they would not surrender their right to reach for the stars. The alien response was swift and predictable. Chancellor Vexithara announced that humanity had chosen war over wisdom. The Council fleet would withdraw to gather reinforcements, and when they returned, they would bring enough firepower to end the human threat permanently. Any human ships found outside their current territories would be destroyed without warning. As the alien fleet began to move away from Earth, Admiral Carter activated the emergency defense protocols. Messages went out to every human colony warning them to prepare for war. The largest military mobilization in human history began as civilian ships were converted to military use, and every able-bodied person was called to serve. Commander Johnson watched the alien ships disappear into the darkness of space and felt a mixture of fear and determination. Humanity had just declared war on the entire galaxy, facing enemies with superior technology and overwhelming numbers. But as he looked at the blue and white Earth spinning below him, Alex knew that humans would rather die free than live as slaves. The aliens had united too late against something they did not understand, something that could not be conquered or contained. They had united too late against the human spirit. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Endeavor and watched the stars through the main window. His ship had been traveling for 3 months now, moving deeper into space than any human had gone before. The crew of 200 people worked quietly around him, checking systems and recording everything they saw. Jake had been exploring space for 15 years, but this mission felt different. They were looking for something new, something that might change everything for humanity. Behind him, Lieutenant Amy Foster called out readings from her station. The numbers showed they were getting close to a star system that looked promising. 3 planets orbited the yellow star, and one of them might be perfect for human life. Jake nodded and told the crew to prepare for a closer look. This was what they did, what humans had been doing for almost 100 years now. They found new worlds and made them into homes. Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter worked late in her office at Luna Station. The moon base had become the center of human space operations, and Lisa controlled the defense networks that protected 17 different star systems. Each system had its own story. Some were mining colonies that dug valuable metals from dead rocks. Others were farming worlds where families grew food under alien suns. A few were research stations where scientists studied strange new things they had never seen before. Lisa looked at reports from all these places. The people living on Kepler 442b had started to change. After 50 years of breathing thin air, their children were born with bigger lungs. The families on the water world of Gliese 667c had learned to swim like fish and build cities underwater. Humans were adapting to each new world they found, becoming something more than what they had been on Earth. What Lisa did not know was that other eyes were watching humanity spread across the stars. Far away on a world called Nexus Prime, alien, leaders sat in a great hall and talked about the human problem. Chancellor Vexithara looked like a tall blue lizard with 4 arms and spoke in a voice that sounded like wind through metal. She had been watching human ships for 20 years, and she did not like what she saw. The Galactic Council had ruled this part of space for thousands of years. 12 different alien species worked together to keep peace and order. They had rules about who could go where and how fast new species could spread. The rules had worked for a very long time, keeping wars from starting and making sure no one group got too strong. But humans had never asked permission to expand. They just went wherever they wanted and built whatever they needed. Vexthara showed the other council members maps of human space. Red dots marked human colonies, and there were too many of them. The humans had started with just one world, but now they controlled 17 star systems. They moved fast, built quickly, and seemed to have no limits on what they would try. This worried the aliens who had spent centuries learning to be careful and slow. The Draconi Republic sent Admiral Krozeth to speak for the military species. He looked like a dragon made of black metal, with red eyes that glowed when he was angry. Krozeth had fought in the last Galactic War 300 years ago, and he knew what happened when aggressive species were not stopped early. The humans reminded him of that old enemy, the one the Council had barely defeated after losing billions of lives. The synthetic collective spoke through a voice that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Their robots and computer minds had been watching human technology, and they were impressed despite themselves. Humans took alien machines and made them work in new ways. They solved problems that should have taken decades in just months. This ability to adapt and change was both useful and dangerous. Dr. Sam Rodriguez worked alone in his tent on the frontier world of New Montana. He was supposed to be studying the local plants and animals, but instead, he had found something much more interesting. Old ruins covered a hillside near the human settlement, clearly built by someone else long ago. The walls had strange writing on them, symbols that seemed to warn about something called the Convergence. Sam had been trying to read the alien writing for weeks. His computer could translate some of it, enough to know that whoever built these ruins had faced the same choice humans were facing now. They had spread across the stars quickly, found new worlds, and built great cities. Then something had happened, something that made them write warnings in stone before they disappeared forever. The writing talked about cycles that repeated every few thousand years. It mentioned species that grew too fast and too strong, and other species that united to stop them. The convergence was what happened when the galaxy decided that one group had become too dangerous to allow. Sam did not understand all of it, but he understood enough to be worried. Back on Nexus Prime, the Council finished their long debate. Every species agreed that humanity had gone too far. The humans had been given chances to make contact, to ask permission, to follow the rules that kept the galaxy peaceful. Instead, they had ignored all attempts at communication and continued expanding like a virus that consumed everything in its path. Chancellor Vexthara called for the vote. One by one, the alien species raised their hands or made their signs of agreement. The decision was final and unanimous. Humanity would be given one last chance to surrender their freedom and accept Council control. If they refused, the full might of the galaxy would be turned against them. Admiral Krozeth began planning the military operation that would follow. 500 ships from 12 different species would gather at the edge of human space. The humans had never seen real galactic military power, had never faced the combined technology of civilizations that had been building weapons for millions of years. It would be a quick war, he thought. Humans were clever, but they were just one young species against the combined might of the galaxy. The message was prepared and sent toward Earth. It would take 6 months to reach the human homeworld. 6 months for humanity to make their choice, submit to Council authority and accept limitations on their expansion, or face the consequences of defying the natural order of the galaxy. The aliens were confident that when humans understood what they faced, they would choose survival over freedom. None of them understood that for humans there was no difference between the two. The final battle at Tartarus Station lasted only 6 hours, but it changed the galaxy forever. Captain Louise Brown led the assault force that breached the station's defenses while Colonel Frank Martinez's troops fought through the corridors inside. The Council's last military stronghold fell when Chancellor Vexthara herself surrendered, ending 3 years of the bloodiest war in galactic history. Admiral Chris Taylor stood on the command deck of the captured station and watched Council fleets across the galaxy power down their weapons. The unified alien alliance that had ruled space for thousands of years was broken. Some species were already fighting each other over territory and resources. while others were begging humanity for protection from their former allies. President Helen Scott announced the formation of the Human Commonwealth from the steps of the United Nations building on Earth. Any species that wanted to join could do so, but they would have to accept human principles of individual freedom and technological progress. The Commonwealth would not rule through fear like the old Council, but through the strength of its ideas and the power of human determination. Dr. Steve Martinez led the first scientific exchange missions to former Council worlds. Human teachers were sharing knowledge that had been forbidden for millennia, showing alien civilizations how to innovate and adapt instead of following ancient traditions. The results were spectacular, as species that had been stagnant for thousands of years began developing new technologies and exploring new possibilities. The cost of victory was becoming clear as humanity counted their losses. 30% of human colonies had been damaged or destroyed during the war. Millions of people had died defending their freedom, and entire worlds bore scars that would take generations to heal. The mining colony at Vega Prime was still uninhabitable, its atmosphere poisoned by alien weapons that turned air into acid. Admiral Carol Thompson was appointed to oversee the reconstruction efforts across human space. Her engineers were working with former enemy species to repair damaged worlds and build new settlements for refugees. The same technology that had won the war was now being used to heal its wounds, though some injuries would never fully recover. Captain Eric Davis commanded the new Galactic Patrol, a joint human-alien fleet responsible for maintaining peace in the post-war galaxy. His ships responded to conflicts between former Council species and protected trade routes from pirates and raiders. The galaxy had become a more dangerous place since the Old Order collapsed, but it was also more free. Dr. Kathy Wright's archaeological teams were exploring ruins on dozens of worlds, searching for clues about the galactic cycles that Dr. Sam Rodriguez had discovered. The ancient warning spoke of patterns that repeated every few thousand years, with young species challenging old orders and forcing change through conflict. Humanity had completed one cycle, but the pattern suggested that greater challenges lay ahead. The former Council species were adapting to their new reality in different ways. The Altarian Federation had embraced human-style democracy and was experiencing unprecedented technological growth. The Draconi Republic remained militaristic, but had reformed their forces along human lines, emphasizing flexibility and innovation over rigid hierarchy. The Synthetic Collective was struggling to understand concepts like individual freedom and creative thinking. Captain Paul Anderson led the first joint exploration mission to the galactic core, where ancient ruins suggested that the cycle of expansion and conflict had repeated many times before. His crew included representatives from 12 different species, all working together to explore mysteries that had been forbidden under Council rule. The mission was humanity's first step toward understanding their place in the larger galactic pattern. 5 years after the war ended, President Adams visited the memorial wall on Luna Station that listed the names of everyone who had died in the conflict. The wall stretched for kilometers, each name representing someone who had chosen to die free rather than live as a slave. Their sacrifice had bought humanity the right to reach for the stars, but the price had been terrible. The galaxy was still adapting to the new order 5 years later. Former Council species were learning to think for themselves after millennia of following orders. Some were thriving under the new freedom, developing technologies and exploring ideas that would have been forbidden under the old system. Others were struggling to adapt, their societies collapsing without the rigid structure they had known for so long. Human colonies were expanding again, but more carefully than before. The war had taught humanity that rapid expansion could provoke powerful enemies, so new settlements were planned with defense and diplomacy in mind. Human explorers still pushed into unknown space, but they now carried teachers and diplomats alongside soldiers and scientists. Dr. Julie Morgan's research into human adaptability had revealed something remarkable about the species. Humans were not just good at adapting to new environments and technologies, they were good at helping other species adapt as well. Human teachers could help alien civilizations break free from ancient patterns and develop new capabilities. This gift for teaching adaptation was becoming humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization. The Commonwealth Parliament met on New Geneva, a world that had been rebuilt after being destroyed in the war. Representatives from 47 species debated issues ranging from trade regulations to exploration policies. The debates were often chaotic, as species with completely different ways of thinking tried to work together. But the chaos was productive, generating new ideas and solutions that none of the species could have developed alone. Admiral Nick Rogers commanded the Deep Space Exploration Fleet, which was pushing into regions of the galaxy that had never been mapped. His ships were finding evidence of other ancient civilizations, some that had risen and fallen long before the Council was formed. The galaxy's history was much longer and more complex than anyone had imagined, with cycles of growth and decline stretching back millions of years. Captain Danny Torres, now an admiral himself, oversaw the training programs that were teaching former Council species how to fight like humans. The lessons went beyond military tactics to include problem-solving skills and creative thinking. Alien officers were learning to make decisions without waiting for orders and to adapt to unexpected situations. The changes were transforming their entire societies. Dr. Sam Rodriguez had established a research institute on New Montana to study the ancient warnings and their implications for the future. His teams were finding similar ruins on worlds across the galaxy, all telling variations of the same story. Young species would rise and challenge old orders, forcing change through conflict. The cycle had repeated dozens of times, each iteration advancing galactic civilization to new levels. The warnings also spoke of threats from beyond the galaxy itself, enemies that would eventually force all galactic species to unite or face extinction. Dr. Rodriguez's translation suggested that the internal conflicts were preparation for these external challenges, forcing civilizations to develop the strength and unity they would need to survive. Captain Louise Brown was exploring the edge of the galaxy when her sensors detected something that should not have been there. Ships were approaching from the void between galaxies, using technology that was unlike anything in the galactic database. The signals her crew intercepted were in languages that no known species had ever used. The discovery sent shockwaves through the Commonwealth Parliament and the surviving Council species. The external threat that the ancient warnings had predicted was finally approaching. Humanity had broken the old galactic order just in time, because the galaxy would need every possible advantage to face what was coming from the darkness between the stars. Admiral Chris Taylor gathered the largest fleet in galactic history as reports came in of scout ships from the extragalactic visitors. The galaxy that had been fragmented by war was uniting again, this time by choice rather than force. Human leadership and alien technology were combining to create defenses that neither could have built alone. The galaxy had united too late against the human spirit, but humanity had used their victory to prepare the galaxy for something much worse. The real test of human leadership was about to begin. The assault on Bastion Prime began with Captain Eric Davis leading a fleet of 200 human ships against the most heavily defended world in Council space. The planet was protected by orbital weapons platforms, defensive satellites, and a garrison fleet of 300 alien vessels. Eric had studied the fortress world for months, looking for weaknesses in defenses that had never been seriously tested. Admiral Carol Thompson had spent the last year developing new weapons that combined human creativity with captured alien technology. Her engineers had learned to modify alien power sources, creating weapons that were more efficient than anything the original designers had imagined. Human ships now carried firepower that could match alien battleships while being smaller and faster than traditional designs. The battle for Bastion Prime showed how much human military capabilities had evolved since the war began. Eric's fleet did not attack in neat formations or follow predictable patterns. Instead, human ships struck from multiple directions, using the planet's moons and debris fields to hide their movements. The alien defenders found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to appear and disappear at will. Dr. Tony Clark worked from a mobile laboratory aboard Eric's flagship, analyzing alien defensive systems in real time. His team had developed techniques for turning alien weapons against their own creators, causing defensive platforms to target each other instead of human ships. Tony's innovations allowed small human forces to defeat much larger alien formations by making the enemy fight themselves. The breakthrough came when Colonel Frank Martinez's ground forces captured the main control center for Bastion Prime's orbital defenses. Frank had led his troops through underground tunnels that the aliens did not know existed, emerging inside the fortress complex and taking the defenders completely by surprise. Within hours, the planet's own weapons were firing on the alien fleet, trying to defend it. Admiral Nick Rogers coordinated the space battle from his command ship, a captured alien dreadnought that his crew had modified with human technology. The ship now carried weapons that were more powerful than anything in the original alien design, operated by humans who understood the technology better than its creators. Nick's flagship alone destroyed 12 enemy vessels in the first hour of combat. The fall of Bastion Prime sent shockwaves throughout Council space. The fortress world had been considered impregnable, defended by the most advanced technology the galaxy possessed. Its capture by human forces proved that no alien stronghold was safe from attack. More importantly, the loss of Bastion Prime cut the supply line supporting Council forces in human space. Meanwhile, political fractures were appearing within the Council alliance. The Altarian Federation had quietly withdrawn their fleets from combat zones, claiming they needed to defend their home systems from potential threats. The Synthetic Collective was questioning the efficiency of continuing a war that had already cost more resources than the entire human expansion was worth. General Katie Lewis commanded Earth's reserve forces and was mobilizing the largest military fleet in human history. Every human colony was contributing ships, weapons, and personnel to the war effort. Even the smallest outposts were sending whatever they could spare, from mining equipment converted to weapons to civilian ships modified for military use. The victory at Bastion Prime allowed human forces to begin liberating occupied colony worlds. Captain Louise Brown led the first liberation fleet to Haven's Rest, where human colonists had been under alien occupation for 6 months. The alien garrison surrendered without a fight when they realized they had no hope of reinforcement or resupply. Dr. Julie Morgan's research into human-alien technology integration had produced remarkable results. Human engineers could now operate any piece of alien equipment within days of first seeing it. More impressively, they were improving alien designs in ways that the original creators found incomprehensible. Human modifications to alien technology often exceeded original specifications by hundreds of %. The Council's military leadership was struggling to understand how their superior technology was being consistently outperformed by primitive human modifications. Admiral Krosth had lost over half his fleet to an enemy that should have been crushed in the first week of fighting. His reports to the Council painted a picture of human capabilities that seemed impossible to believe. The Battle of the Tritium sector became the largest space engagement in galactic history. Admiral Chris Taylor commanded 500 human ships against the last major Council fleet in human space. The battle lasted 3 days and covered an entire star system, with fighting ranging from the outer planets to the central star itself. Chris had learned to use human unpredictability as a weapon against alien coordination. His fleet split into dozens of smaller groups that attacked from different directions and used different tactics. The alien fleet, designed to fight as a single coordinated unit, could not adapt to facing multiple independent enemies operating without central control. The human victory in the Tritium sector effectively ended Council military operations in human space. The surviving alien ships retreated to their own territories while human fleets began pursuing them toward their home worlds. What had started as a defensive war was becoming a human offensive that threatened the very heart of Council territory. Chancellor Vexathara called emergency sessions of the Council as member species demanded explanations for the military disasters. The war that was supposed to demonstrate Council power and unity had instead revealed weaknesses that enemies across the galaxy were beginning to notice. Other hostile species were mobilizing their own fleets, sensing that the Council alliance was vulnerable. Captain Paul Anderson led deep reconnaissance missions into Council space, gathering intelligence on alien homeworlds and military capabilities. His reports revealed that most Council species had grown soft during their long peace, with military forces that were more ceremonial than functional. Only the Draconi Republic maintained combat-ready forces, and even they were struggling against human tactical innovations. The siege of Nexus Prime, the Council capital world, began when Admiral Carroll Thompson's fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. The capital was defended by representatives from every Council species, creating a defensive force that should have been impossible for humans to defeat. Instead, the mixed alien fleet proved vulnerable to human tactics that exploited the coordination problems between different species. Dr. Steve Martinez had established scientific exchange programs with alien species that were beginning to question Council authority. His teams were sharing human technological innovations with civilizations that had been stagnant for thousands of years. The results were revolutionary, as alien scientists discovered new possibilities they had never imagined. The psychological impact of human success was spreading throughout Council territory. Species that had accepted Council authority for millennia were beginning to demand independence. The rigid order that had maintained galactic peace was cracking under pressure from forces that the Council had never considered. Admiral Kevin Park received reports that several Council species were opening secret negotiations with human representatives. The Altarian Federation was offering a separate peace treaty, while the Catherian Alliance was proposing a military alliance against the remaining Council forces. The unified enemy that humanity had faced was fragmenting into competing factions. The final assault on the Council's military headquarters at Tartarus Station required everything humanity could bring to bear. Colonel Frank Martinez led combined human and alien forces against the last stronghold of Council resistance. The station's fall would end the war and leave humanity as the dominant military power in the galaxy. As human forces prepared for the final battle, intercepted communications revealed that the Council was planning something desperate. References to ancient weapons and forbidden technologies suggested that the aliens were willing to risk everything to stop human expansion. The war was about to enter its most dangerous phase, with weapons that could destroy entire star systems about to be unleashed.